Hey, how's everyone doing? Business storytellers, Christoph Trapp here, your host and author of the new book, Going Live. Live stream your podcast to reach more people. Why wouldn't you do it, right? It makes sense. It makes sense. So today we want to talk about episode 10, which is how do you frame yourself on your show? And this is an interesting topic to me because when I first started, I didn't have this set up at all. What I was doing is I put my iPhone over here or my iPad over there or whatever I had nearby, a mobile device, quite frankly. And, that's how I connected with people. That's how I did my live streams. And that's how I did it. So now I thought a little bit more about the framing. How do I want to look? What's most comfortable? I don't know if you saw that, but in February, I was one of the most streaming restreamers. I don't know, top 20% or something. 22 hours. So first of all, it comes back to a few things. One is you want to be comfortable, right? So if you're not comfortable on your own show, it's going to be really, really hard to do a lot of shows because you got to be comfortable. So I get a better chair. Sometimes I stand up. It just keep that in mind. It is actually important. It is more important than it might sound. But you want to make sure whatever you're doing it's comfortable to you. Then the next thing is, from a production perspective, much more important, it has to look good. So what I came up with is this is my setup. I got this mic right here. And I don't know if you guys have seen that joke where there's somebody just moves his mic up and down for like 20 minutes. That's the whole show. And they don't say anything. And sometimes that's easy to do, right? We're just talking and, not much value is being shared. We're just talking to be talking. And that happens. But you want to figure out what's a good framing. So I like this framing. Here's the reason why. So you got my name on the side there, and I'm kind of off to the side just a little bit. So that's pretty good framing, even in the traditional sense. You got some background behind me. You see some of my hats. As you can tell, I love hats. Whatever it is, that's what it is. But the framing seems to work. Now, currently, I don't have a guest on the show, obviously. But when I have a guest on the Business Storytelling Podcast, then we're next to each other. So I don't like to zoom in too far necessarily, but certainly you want to keep that in mind too. There's one function where you can really be super close to each other. Maybe that's in StreamYard where I saw that the other day. And of course, as you can see, I'm using Restream today to the Restream Live Studio to broadcast, to come to you on all these different channels and to talk about framing. So Susan Ebitz of the Human Behavior Lab, she actually told me previously that she believes you should show more of your body, so your upper body. So I'm relatively, far out, so you can see some of me. And I tried doing like the more of a full body shot before, but the problem is, so here's the thing. I'm producing my own show, right? If I had somebody else producing it, it might work. But so look, I'm going back and I'm already too far back. And what are you gaining right here? So the audio levels still sound okay, but I can't reach anything, So if there was a comment coming in, I would have to do this. You can actually see a little bit more of the gut I have to lose. But anyway, so figure out what looks good. I think when I first started, I was too close. I was too close to the camera, So instead of this shot, you kind of had this shot, and it was too close, And so figure out what works best, what looks good. But Susan made a really good point. She said the framing can make a difference, and I've personally struggled with that. Susan advocates showing more of yourself on the video, include at least your upper body. So I'm kind of doing that. I'm not going all the way down to the waist, but I'm doing more than just my face. So keep that in mind. Also, this can be important because it allows people to see the entirety of your body language communication. So you can see what I'm doing. You can see my hands. If you only have my face, you can't even see my hands, right? You can see my facial expressions, but of course, facial expressions are also somewhat difficult to read, and as Susan mentioned, you have to have a baseline with people, right? So for example, I'm not much of a smiler, even when I'm happy. So just because I'm sitting here like this is called the resting thinking phase, basically. You know, I'm not unhappy. I'm just not smiling. So just something to keep in mind. You do have to have that baseline. And I think the more we get to know each other here, and you're listening to my live streams and my podcast, of course, you know me better and more. And I get to share all these thoughts with you guys. So I always appreciate that, to connect with you. The other thing to keep in mind is what are you trying to accomplish? So I'll give you an example. So I live stream to Amazon, right? So everything you can see on the screen, you can actually buy on Amazon. And so you can buy the chair, you can buy the mic, et cetera, et cetera. And what the reason I bring that up is because I could probably put the mic off screen, right? So I could probably put it over there or like over here somewhere, and you don't have to see it, so you can still hear me, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. But I want it here because I think it looks better. And then of course, from a sales perspective, when you see the mic, you might buy it. Now on LinkedIn, for example, I don't think I posted the link today on where to buy it, but you can on Amazon. So Amazon Live, I'm a big fan, in case you didn't know. Previously, I had a wider angle. I actually showed the ring light even, and I thought, I know why, and it kind of worked, but it didn't look as nice as I wanted it to look. So I started that, and then the other problem was when I did that, I actually there was just too much moving around. So when I went from live streams to meetings to other things, because the ring light on a meeting was just weird. So I had to kind of move around that. Many live streams at the start, they just jump in and go from there. I started playing a little bit of a video. I didn't do it today, but usually when I produce these shows with Switcher Studio, I use a little video that I play. Same with the Real Talk, the Customer Insights show. If you haven't checked that out, fantastic conversations held by Jen Vogel. I'm a content strategist on her team. But it's a video that plays at the beginning. So you want to think about when you come on, how does it look? How does it look when you're next to each other? How does it look in the big picture of things? But at the beginning, I always like to have something else on the screen. So it's not just us just sitting here waiting. And so, for example, in Restream, I did the intro in the graphics section, and there's different areas. So for example, different examples. So if I wanted to take a 30-second break, I could be like, hey, I'll be back in 30. And then you come back on the screen, and super easy to switch, the different things on all these platforms. Honestly, it's not just Restream, it's not just Switcher, StreamYard, et cetera, et cetera. But my point is, keep that in mind. What else is happening? Where's your guest? How big are you on the screen? So you don't want to be too far out, right? If you have 6 people on screen, you don't want to do that. I am a big fan of split screens. There are different options. So in Restream, there's basically one option, and it aligns you based on how many people there are. When I had 6 people, I would bring them up, and then whoever was speaking, I would make them full screen. On Switcher Studio, there's other options as well, and they have different titles, right? It's like the rounded 2 boxes next to each other. let's see what else. Big picture, little picture, different kind of frames. You can also you can show graphics on them, and you can do that in Restream as well. So basically what you do is if I wanted to share my screen, or you can add a video file. I probably don't have that planned, but share your screen, so here, let me share my screen with you, not to share um, and then you just turn that on. And so here's my screen, my Amazon Live on the other monitor, so you can see my setup there. And the reason this actually can be important, so I can still talk right here, and I could pull up other things. So for example, if I wanted to click on my book, and now I can talk about the book, and then there's the live stream on the book, and see what's going on here, and do things like that. You can click on different things, and you can show different things if you do that. So something to keep in mind: what is going on, what are you going to show, what's important. Just lost the chat over here on Amazon. If you guys have anything any comments, you might have to refresh, but I just lost it. Maybe not in the app. So, but anyway, so think about what else is going on. Think about how you want to look, how far you're away. If you're 6 people, you probably want to be a little bit closer. The graphics are important. In Restream, you can import graphics that you can create yourself. And there's some that come out of the box. So for example, this thing at the bottom here, my name over here, that's one of the options. You can pretty easily change it to other things. So for example, if I wanted to, you can have different layouts. That's one version. That's another version. I could have follow me on Twitter. So, all those different things, they are certainly options, but you want to keep an eye on that. You want to think about what are the graphics that you want, and so they got additional options available as well. So that's like titles, lower thirds, social overlays, and I picked the ones that make the most sense for that show. Sometimes, that's the social one, just because we're talking about Instagram, for example. Why wouldn't I have the Instagram handles as opposed to just the website, for example? But if we're just talking about general stuff and not a specific network, I might just do the website. So certainly you can do that. But you can have split screens. You can have the full screen. You can also, sometimes you might not have to worry about the framing at all if you only do audio. So I'm still actually not opposed to doing that. The way you do it is, so you really just put up some kind of graphic, and then some kind of graphic, and basically that's how that works. So you just put that up, and then you talk on top of it. And there's really, that works. I mean, it's okay to do. I've done it before. It still publishes, it still live streams as video. So it doesn't save you any bandwidth. It helps you, if your internet is down, for example, but it does help you with, trying different things, seeing what might work. If you don't like your framing or whatever. So the other thing to think about, Dave McDonald was actually on the show, and he is a cartoonist at crafted1k.com. Never mind Alexa. I don't know why she thinks I'm talking to her. I didn't say her name. So he was previously on the show, and he talked to me about cartoons in your marketing, and that was an interesting show. I really appreciate Dave for being such a good partner and willing to share his wisdom with all our listeners, and also in the book, crafted1k.com, crafted1k.com, if you guys want to check that out. And basically, what him and I were kind of brainstorming on, why don't you think about some cartoons in your live stream? Why not? So You can have a static cartoon to drive home ideas in a visual way, use animations to make things more interesting. You can also have live drawing. So that's basically you do a split screen. And as I'm talking through something, the cartoonist is then live drawing it. So you may have seen that at conferences or whatnot. And I think that's not a bad idea. Why not try that? Of course, there's some cost involved, I would think, or maybe you can find some kind of deal with the person. Certainly at conferences they do pay them, and why would you expect them to not be paid for that? That's a lot of work, right? And not something anybody can do. Of course, there's a lot more planning involved if you do if you do cartoons, because you can't just pull things up. They have to be produced, they have to be done. So something to think about. That's the topic we have on framing. Interestingly, we did chat about this for like 17 minutes, and I was not just moving my mic up and down. So hopefully you guys found that helpful. The next episode, which is publishing right after this one, is I'm talking about sound effects. It has already live streamed previously, and you can check that out. And then the following episode will be on virtual conferences and live streaming. And the one thing I want to mention quickly here, we're not going to do a full episode on that, but we do have a section in the book on verbal acknowledgments. And actually, I just spoke at the Global Podfest Summit, and I mentioned the same thing. If you have a guest, don't verbally acknowledge anything, just nod your head, because you are stepping on each other, and that can be a problem. So just something to keep in mind. It happens, but it makes the production easier when you don't do that. Christoph Trapp. I'm the author of Going Live, Live Stream Your Podcast to Reach More People. Make sure you listen to the full episode. Until next time.